I am Tanvi Taneja. We'll bring you the day's big stories from across India and the world. Joining me from Washington, D.C. today is my colleague, Kate Fisher. Kate, good to have you with us.
I'm great, thanks, Tanvi. Here in Washington, D.C., it's 10 a.m. and it's 4 in the afternoon across Central Europe. Coming up in the next 30 minutes, in a show of the U.S.'s support for Israel, Secretary of State Antony Blinken has met Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Tel Aviv. Israel is refusing to lift its blockade on the Gaza Strip for humanitarian purposes until all of its hostages are released. That's all coming up. Back now, though, to you, Tanvi, in New Delhi.
Thank you, Kate. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken pledges support to Israel Prime Minister Netanyahu in Tel Aviv. Israel says no humanitarian break will be given to Gaza siege unless all 97 hostages are freed.
Let's see. Sorry, it's under these circumstances.
Thank you.
We're here. We're not going anywhere.
India's foreign ministry says that New Delhi looks at Hamas's rampage as a terrorist attack, also reiterates backing for an independent Palestine. NATO ministers pledged to sustain military aid to Ukraine, assure that their support will not waver as a result of the Israel-Gaza conflict. And Russian President Vladimir Putin holds talks in Kyrgyzstan in his first foreign visit since an international criminal court arrest warrant against him. As the conflict between Israel and Palestine enters its 6th day today, President Isaac Herzog on Thursday asserted that he expects the world nations to express clear moral clarity regarding the situation.
We have to understand there's a state in a way that has built a machine of evil right at our doorstep. It's an entire nation out there that is responsible. It's not true. This rhetoric about civilians not aware, not involved, it's absolutely not true. They could have risen up, they could have fought against that evil regime which took over Gaza in a coup d'etat, murdering their family members who were in Fatah. This is exactly the moment of truth. Nation must stand up to the truth. I just heard the comment of the Chancellor Olaf Scholz of Germany, speaking with moral clarity. He expressed moral clarity as to the situation. We expect nations in the world to express clear moral clarity regarding this situation and this terrible massacre.
This comes as Israel continues to respond to the conflict with a massive bombardment of Gaza. More than 1,300 people have been killed and 2,700 others injured in Israel since major conflict broke out on Saturday. Meanwhile, over 1,100 lost their lives in the Gaza Strip. In response, Israeli military conducted airstrikes targeting Hamas sites and headquarters in the coastal enclave. The new round of conflict has led to massive casualties on both sides. Meanwhile, tensions along the Israel-Lebanon border seemed high on Thursday as Israeli troops, tanks and vehicles are deployed in the region. The outbreak of violence along the Lebanon border came after Israeli shelling hit southern Lebanese towns in response to a fresh rocket attack by Iran-backed Hezbollah. A Lebanese security source said that Hezbollah fired 2 precision missiles into Israel. And we're now going to ground zero. DD India's Sarah Coates joins us live from Tel Aviv, Israel, and Mia Alberti joins us live from Beirut in Lebanon. Mia, to you first. With Israeli troops, tanks deployed along the Lebanese border, are we about to see another major conflict which would have huge global and regional implications?
Look, from the signs that we have seen so far, it doesn't seem that Hezbollah is ready to do that, at least for now. In the last few days, we have seen some clashes between Hezbollah and Israeli forces here in the border, but all that we have seen still matches the type of profile of deterrence that these two entities have been engaged in for many years now. Many experts, even politicians, saying that what is happening at the border is indeed very worrying, that it could spill into something larger, but what we have seen so far really doesn't show us that there is an active conflict about to happen, and that is because we're talking about Hezbollah and Israel. Both sides have a huge military capacity, and if they wanted to start making some real damages and casualties, they would have by now. When we see that, then it would be safe to say that they are in active combat. On Thursday, everything remains calm in the border. Since Wednesday afternoon, we haven't seen new fighting, with the United Nations warning that there is calm, but it is fragile, but that it doesn't seem that the conflicts of the last few days have actually escalated into something larger.
Okay, Sarah, to you now. Are you seeing any escalation of the conflict in Gaza? Also tell us, what do we know of the safety of hostages taken by Hamas on Saturday?
Yes, hello there, Tanvi. Well, look, the short answer to your hostage question there is not much at all. The families of these people continue to push the government here, the Israeli government continue to push the Biden administration to do all it can. That, of course, is one of the US's top diplomats' main jobs while on this trip here to Israel. He is working to ensure the release, to find information about these people. We know that there are more than 97 of these people who've been confirmed to have been captured by Hamas, but that number, Tanvi, is believed to be so much higher. The IDF does believe there could be more than 150 Israelis being held underground in these so-called terror tunnels underneath Gaza. And this, of course, is complicating any ground operation that is potentially being planned. This is one of the reasons that Israel is maintaining this total blockade of the Gaza Strip. It is saying humanitarian for humanitarian, saying that you will not get any medicine, any food, any water, any gas, any petrol until you release our civilians unharmed. So look, this is certainly a fragile situation, to say the very least, and one that is causing a lot of worry, a lot of sadness, and a lot of anxiety here on the ground in Israel.
Sarah Coates, you and your team stay safe. Thank you very much for joining us. Sarah Coates joining us from Tel Aviv, Israel, and Mia Alberti joining us from Beirut, Lebanon. Thank you. US Secretary of State Antony Blinken met Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu in Tel Aviv today as part of a Middle East tour to show Washington's solidarity with Israel. My colleague Kate Fisher is in Washington, D.C. She gives us more on this and other stories making headlines around the world. Kate, we heard great words of reassurance by Blinken today.
That's right, Tanvi. The US is continuing to send that strong message of reassurance of Washington's support to Israel and its promise to help with securing the release of those hostages kidnapped by Hamas that Sarah was just talking about. Meanwhile, the Israeli Prime Minister has also thanked the United States for its support. In a joint statement with Mr. Netanyahu, Secretary Blinken said that the US will always be by Israel's side.
People of Israel have long and rightly prided themselves on their self-reliance, on their ability to defend themselves, even when the odds are stacked against them. The message that I bring to Israel is this: you may be strong enough on your own to defend yourself, but as long as America exists, you will never ever have to. We will always be there by your side.
Blinken also said that at least 25 Americans have been killed in the attack by Hamas.
Tragically, the number of innocent lives claimed by Hamas's heinous attacks continues to rise. Among those, we now know that at least 25 American citizens were killed. We join families in Israel in the United States, around the world, in mourning their immeasurable loss.
Well, as we were hearing from Sarah in Tel Aviv, Israel has stated that it will not lift its blockade on the Gaza Strip for humanitarian purposes until all of its hostages are released. Israel's identified at least 97 people who've been taken into Gaza as hostages. And this decision comes after a plea from the Red Cross, which requested the entry of fuel to prevent hospitals, it says, from turning into morgues. Since the attacks began on Saturday morning, Israel has stopped all supplies entering Gaza, including food, water and medicine. Jordan has dispatched the first aid plane to Gaza since the beginning of the war. The military plane is carrying essential medical supplies to help the growing number of Palestinians who've been injured. In coordination with Egyptian authorities, the relief plane will land in Egypt before making its way to the Gaza Strip through the Rafah border. Egyptian President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has stressed the need to ensure the regularity of humanitarian relief services and aid to people in Gaza during a phone call with the British Prime Minister Rishi Sunak. The Egyptian government said on Thursday that it was directing international aid flights for Gaza to an airport in northern Sinai, though so far it's been hampered by Israeli attacks. Israel's continuous bombardment and blockade of the Gaza Strip has put Egypt on alert as it shares a border with the south of Gaza and controls the main exit point for the 2.3 million people who live there. During a special address to Germany's parliament, German Chancellor Olaf Scholz expressed his support for Israel. He hit out at Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas and said that his silence following the attacks on Israel was shameful.
I ask myself, where is the clear condemnation of the terrorist violence from the Palestinian Authority and its President Mahmoud Abbas? I'll say your silence is shameful. We will review our entire development aid to the Palestinian territories. Our yardstick will be whether and how these projects best serve peace in the region and the security of Israel.
Und der Sicherheit Israels am besten dienen.
NATO defence ministers and officials have met in Brussels, assuring Ukraine that their support will not waver as a result of the violence in Israel and Gaza. Nonetheless, the alliance's Secretary-General also said that Israel does not stand alone and has a right to defend itself against Hamas's attacks. Meanwhile, NATO defence ministers also discussed the damage to the critical undersea infrastructure in the Baltic Sea. DD's India's Alex Kadier reports from Brussels.
NATO boss Jens Stoltenberg expressed his support for Israel and condemned Hamas's terrorist attacks in the strongest possible terms at this meeting of the alliance's defence ministers. But we understand that's all we'll hear from the NATO alliance on the subject of Israel and Hamas. They will not be publishing a joint statement on the matter. But many NATO members have been clear that they also stand by Israel's right to defend itself. Chief among them are the United States. They've deployed the world's biggest warship, an aircraft carrier, to the eastern Mediterranean and have said more military personnel is on standby to deploy if needed. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin also had a stark warning against escalation.
As President Biden has said, for any country, for any organization, for anyone thinking about trying to take advantage of the agony in Israel, to try to widen this conflict or to try to spill more blood, we have just one word: don't.
NATO defence ministers also focused on the Baltic Connector, a pipeline and communications cable which links Finland to Estonia and which was damaged last Sunday. Finland said an external actor was likely involved in the incident and that sabotage by another state could not be ruled out. Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg said that the alliance would have a determined response if an attack on the pipeline is proven.
It's too early to determine exactly what caused the damage of these the pipeline and the cable. There are ongoing investigations, and until they are finalized, I think it's a bit too early to tell. But if it is proven that this is a deliberate attack on allies' critical undersea infrastructure, this would be a very serious incident, and it will be met by a united and determined response from NATO.
Above all, the NATO boss and the alliance's defence ministers also made clear that turbulent events around the world would not distract from their key focus, supporting Ukraine against Russia's invasion. Alex Carrier in Brussels reporting for DD India.
Russian President Vladimir Putin is on an official two-day visit to Kyrgyzstan, where he's held talks with the Kyrgyz President Sadir Japarov. During the meeting, Mr. Putin underscored Russia's importance as a key trade partner and as the biggest investor in the Kyrgyz economy, and he said that the two countries would further develop their cooperation. Well, President Putin is on his first known trip abroad since the International Criminal Court issued a warrant for his arrest. He'll also take part in the Commonwealth of Independent States Summit on Friday.
When we looked at trade and our economic partnership, we were happy to note that last year bilateral trade turnover increased by 37%. It reached a record $3.4 billion, and in the first half of the year, it increased by almost 18%. And I fully agree with my colleague, President Japarov, that we have good indicators for growth.
Let's get more now from DD India's correspondent in Kyiv, Megumi Lim.
There is an understanding that President Putin has really isolated himself as a result of launching this full-scale invasion against Ukraine. He is indeed in Kyrgyzstan, but again, as you said, this is his first trip abroad since the ICC issued an arrest warrant against him. And we have been seeing Putin, turn to countries like North Korea and Iran for help in this war. And it really speaks to, as many people have said, analysts have also said, that it speaks to his desperation and isolation that he is facing because of this war, that he has to turn to countries like North Korea. And in comparison, we have been seeing the level of diplomacy that President Zelensky has been carrying out in recent weeks and days. Kyiv just hosted a NATO foreign ministers meeting here last week, and he was just recently in Romania and yesterday in Brussels at the NATO headquarters. And we are seeing a stronger and stronger alliance with Ukraine and EU countries and also NATO member nations. So it's just no comparison, the kind of support that Ukraine has been receiving from countries, and compared to that with Putin going to countries like Kyrgyzstan, which is again his first trip abroad. But the kind of concerns that we're hearing on the ground in Kyiv is more about the ongoing support, even though I did mention that we are seeing in general ongoing support from Western allies. People here are still concerned that aid from Western countries could dry up, especially from the United States.
That's all from me here in Washington this morning. Back now to you, Tanvi, in New Delhi.
Thank you very much, Kate. Kate Fisher joining us from Washington, D.C. You're watching DD India Global, still to come on the show. India begins Operation Ajay to bring back Indian citizens who wish to return from conflict-hit Israel. A parliamentary forum on life, that's Lifestyle for Environment, begins in New Delhi today. We'll tell you all about it on the other side. Stay tuned.
Ninth Parliamentary Speaker Summit, which is also called as P20. We're going to tell you everything that you need to know about the P20 Summit. Why is it so important? How climate and other pressing global issues are being focused here in this Speaker Summit, and a lot more.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Global. I am Tanvi Taneja. India's External Affairs Minister Dr. S. Jaishankar chaired a meeting on Thursday to review preparedness for Operation Ajay. India has launched Operation Ajay to help Indians who are stuck in Israel to return home. As per the External Affairs Ministry of India, around 18,000 Indians are currently residing in Israel. The ministry has also set up a 24-hour control room to monitor the situation there. Briefing media persons in New Delhi, MEA Ministry of External Affairs spokesperson Arindam Bagchi said that under Operation Ajay, the first flight is expected to reach Tel Aviv later tonight and will bring back over 200 Indians by next morning.
As announced by External Affairs Minister yesterday, Operation Ajay has been launched to facilitate the return from Israel of our citizens who wish to come back. The first charter flight will be reaching Tel Aviv later tonight to pick up the Indian citizens and is likely to return to India tomorrow morning.
In India's Foreign Ministry further said that India looks at the rampage by Hamas as a terrorist attack. Besides, India's Foreign Ministry also said that India has always advocated for resumption of dialogue.
I think we've been very clear that we see this as a terrorist attack. India has always advocated the resumption of direct negotiations towards establishing a sovereign, independent and viable state of Palestine, living within secure and recognized borders, side by side, at peace with Israel. And I think that position remains the same.
More from India, Prime Minister Narendra Modi laid the foundation stone and dedicated to the nation multiple development projects in the northern Indian state of Uttarakhand. The projects that were inaugurated and dedicated to the nation today include 76 rural roads and 25 bridges built in rural areas.
13.5 करोड़ लोग गरीबी से बाहर 5 साल में आना, ये अपने आप में दुनिया अचरज कर रही है। ये 13.5 करोड़ लोग कौन है? इनमें से बहुत सारे लोग आपकी तरह ही पहाड़ों में रहने वाले हैं, सुदूर इलाकों में रहते हैं। ये 13.5 करोड़ लोग इस बात का उदाहरण है कि भारत अपनी गरीबी मिटा सकता है।
Ahead of the 9th edition of the two-day G20 Parliamentary Speakers Summit, or P20 Summit, parliamentarians from across the world gathered in New Delhi to deliberate on strategies for advancing sustainable lifestyles and combating climate change at the Parliamentary Forum on Life, that's Lifestyle for Environment. Inaugurating the opening session of the Forum on Mission Life event, Speaker of the Lower House of Indian Parliament, Om Birla, urged people to adopt a lifestyle that doesn't pose threat to the environment.
माननीय श्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी ने पर्यावरण के लिए लाइफ स्टाइल का विचार विश्व के समक्ष रखा। मिशन लाइफ स्टाइल पर्यावरण संरक्षण का व्यापक दृष्टिकोण है जो प्रत्येक व्यक्ति को अपने जीवन में रिड्यूस, रीयूज और रिसाइकिल व्यवहार अपनाने की प्रेरणा देता है। इसलिए मैं आज एक ऐसी जीवन शैली, एक ऐसा दृष्टिकोण अपनाने की आवश्यकता है जिसमें हमारे पर्यावरण को नुकसान न पहुंचे। ये हम सबका व्यक्तिगत और सामूहिक दायित्व है।
And now let's take a look at other stories making news around the world. United Auto Workers shut down Ford's biggest plant globally, halting production of their lucrative pickup trucks. Around 8,700 union members at Ford's Kentucky truck plant went on strike after the US automaker refused to move further in contract bargaining. NASA has revealed the very first glimpse of samples taken from the asteroid Bennu. Samples they believe could provide new information into the formation of not just our solar system or planet, but the origins of life on Earth. At an estimated 250 grams, it's the largest asteroid sample ever collected in space, and it contains two of the essential building blocks for life. At least 2 people died while 6 others were injured in southern Hungary after a car carrying illegal migrants hit a tree and turned over. The driver was a smuggler and accelerated the vehicle when asked to stop at a police checkpoint, which resulted in the accident. And New Zealand Labour Party leader Chris Hipkins has voted in Auckland just 2 days out from the country's general election, while Prime Ministerial rival Christopher Luxon from the centre-right National Party made a campaign stop at a childcare centre. Luxon is expected to emerge as the largest party on election day, with the Guardian Essential poll showing a 34 to 30% lead over Hipkins' Labour Party. And thousands of fans gathered to catch a peek of Taylor Swift as she stepped out for the world premiere of her concert film. The premiere was held at the Groove shopping mall in the Los Angeles, which was shut down entirely for the day to accommodate the event. Earlier, the singer announced that the film would only be released in North America, but later it was announced that it would be screened worldwide.
Extraordinary experience of my entire life. To go on a little adventure together, and that adventure is going to span 17 years of music.
So with that, it's a wrap in this edition of DD India Global. Join us tomorrow at 5 p.m. and 7:30 p.m. Indian Standard Time. Do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. Connect with us on Facebook, X, formerly Twitter, and Instagram at DD India Live. We'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Tanvi Taneja from my entire team in New Delhi. Thanks for watching. Namaskar.